Checking in at number 4 on our list, Dalton, is a guy who's looking for a big bounce back senior season. It is Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, who on my list going into last season was my number 2 receiver in college football, only behind Marvin Harrison Jr., his teammate, and both of them projected as first-round picks. Egbuka returns for his senior season and right now checks in at number 4 on our list right now. But, obviously, 2023, kind of a side dome. When you look back at it over the last 2 years of Emeka Egbuka's tape, what made him so special and why were we so high on him entering 2023?
I think it's just a really fundamentally sound route runner. And honestly, I think Egbuka is kind of what we think Evan Stewart could be, but we actually saw an elite season out of him in 2022, right? Tough route runner, solid hands, good speed, maybe not blazing speed, but really good speed, just as fundamentally sound a receiver as there was in the country in 2022. And I don't think that wasn't the case last year because there was a lot of extenuating circumstances, right, with Ohio State last year. Kyle McCord was definitely we like him, and you're going to, I'm sure, love him at Syracuse, but he's a step down from C.J. Stroud, right? It's definitely a step down. Ohio State's pass protection, along with McCord's immobility, kind of gave less opportunities. It was more run-centered, a little more play-action-centered, and you still had Marvin Harrison having an elite year next to him, and Egbuka dealt with injuries. So I think 2023 was just kind of this melting pot of little problems adding up for Ohio State's offense and for Egbuka in general. You could especially tell the injuries kind of took away the top gear. But when you talk about a guy the year before who had 1,150 yards and 10 touchdowns and an 84 receiving grade, we went into last year talking about him as wide receiver too. Absolutely. I think it was warranted. Absolutely. And there's some other great guys. We didn't think Malik Neighbors would explode the way he did, right? We thought Ohio State had the best duo in the country. But Egbuka sticks around for another year. Give us a healthy season, right? If we get a healthy season of Egbuka, this ranking is definitely warranted because I think very much like his teammate Quinshon Judkins at running back, we have seen it. There was a dip last year for sure based on some circumstances, and Judkins was more of a heavy workload, but we've seen it before. And kind of the phrase is if you can do it once, you can do it again, right? And I think Egbuka is the ultimate. Listen, he could be number 1 on this list by the end of the year. He could. He's as smooth a route runner as any receiver in the country. He does all the fundamental things that you want. He's got excellent hands. Intermediate grade the last 2 years. That part didn't go away. 99.1 in 2022, 97.8 in 2023. If nothing else, you know for a fact you've got a really good route runner, a really good intermediate receiver, a chain mover who can get first downs. And I'm actually intrigued with a smaller sample, Max. In 2022, he had 74 receptions and forced 7 missed tackles, all right, which isn't a high rate. This past year, only 41 catches, but forced 10 missed tackles on those 41. So if he's added an after-the-catch element and he can give a fully healthy season to an Ohio State team that should be in the national title picture, he may be one of the keys for it. With Will Howard or Julian Sand or whoever's going to start and finish the year at quarterback, Egbuka may be the key to the whole thing because Chip Kelly's going to want to run the ball with Judkins and Henderson. And Jeremiah Smith, for as freaky as he is still really, really young. Egbuka is the one big-time veteran receiver in that group. If he's healthy and he lives up to his potential that we thought he had going into last year, Ohio State could be the national title favorite. But we just have to hope, I believe it was ankle problems plaguing him last year.
Yeah, it was.
He just got to get back in there and be healthy for the whole season and show us what he can do, especially deep down the field.
Yeah, he missed 3 games last year with an ankle injury, and kind of even when he was out there, you could see that it was hindering him, man. And the year before in 2022, second most valuable receiver in the Power 5, according to our wins above average metric. The only one more valuable was Marvin Harrison Jr. that year. 5th among Power 5 receivers that year, like you said, over 1,150 receiving yards, and tied for 7th in receiving touchdowns with 10 receiving touchdowns in 2022. Smooth route runner. That's a great way to put it, Don. I think that's the exact word I would use with Emeka Egbuka. Is just smooth all around, man. 95th percentile separation rate over the last 2 years at 86%. He was open on 86% of his targets over the last 2 years, which again is 95th percentile. 93rd percentile in separation rate against single coverage. So when he's going one-on-one with a defender, he was open on over 75% of his targets against single coverage as well. You mentioned the after the catch ability. I think that was a lot better this past year. He's averaged over almost 7 yards after the catch per reception, which is in the 74th percentile. Really good hands. Only about a 5% drop rate in his over the last 2 years. Really good in contested situations. Has caught 50% of his contested targets as well. Not a lot to dislike, I think, in his game. The problem with him is just simply staying on the field as of right now. And for me, he was clearly the number 3 receiver in college football. You had him a little bit lower on your list, which is why he checks in here at number 4. So, Dalton, what were the reasons that you had him at number 5, I believe, on your list of the top receivers in college football?
It's, again, very much the same thing why I had Quinshon Judkins a little bit lower than you, is that the greatness, the real greatness that we saw was 2 years ago as opposed to last year, right? But again, if you put it on tape, you can do it again. Clearly, he's got the talent. I think the big part of it is staying healthy, right? And hopefully a better quarterback situation with Will Howard or Julian Sayin, or however they're going to – I assume it's going to be Will Howard to start out, so we'll go with that. And you just saw a big drop off, in part because of the injuries in production on the deep ball, right? The intermediate, the things under 20 yards, stayed pretty similar to the year before. And even after the catch, if he's gotten better, that's big time. But he needs to just if he has that top gear, if he's healthy, if he can be a threat over the top, along with Jeremiah Smith. And Ohio State's always turned out it's a receiver factory up there. But if Egbuka can add the vertical element back into his game like he had in 2022, you might be right. He might be third. He could even be higher. He's got the talent to be number 1 on this list. We thought maybe coming into this year, if he stayed beyond Marvin Harrison's tenure, that he could be number 1. But it's just, for me, it's what I've seen more recently. What I more recently saw was something that was more like a top 6 to 8 receiver instead of maybe number 1 or 2, right? But if he's healthy, and he gets the speed fully back, and he gets the deep ball element back in there, and it becomes a vertical threat again, especially with the way Chip Kelly and them are going to run the ball in this offense. You got 3 dynamic running threats in Judkins and Travion Henderson and Will Howard himself. Will Howard can really run the football at quarterback. Then you're talking about play action, shots over the top, everything Chip Kelly always wants to do. So Egbuka's got all the potential in the world. I need to see him healthy. I need to see him get vertical.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point by you, is that, he's not really much of a deep receiver right now, right? He's got 21 deep targets over the last 2 years. Most of them have come in the short and intermediate part of the game. He's 21st percentile among FBS receivers over the last 2 years, and averaged at the target at under 10 yards. So he's used a lot in the intermediate and short part of the game. So not really much of a deep receiver. I think he's a really, really good athlete as well, but he's not like a absolutely ridiculous one either. I just think he's a really all-around good player. It's going to be interesting to see how he is as the number 1 receiver, at least to start the season. We'll see how ridiculous Jeremiah Smith will be as a true freshman. But, man, he is going to be such a needed presence in that wide receiver room because they have a lot of talent. Don't get me wrong. They have a lot of former 5-star recruits, high 4-star recruits as well in that receiver room, even outside of Egbuka, who was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, Dalton. But even with that, man, having a senior leading that locker room like Emeka Egbuka is so massive for them. So we'll see if he can reemerge as a first-round candidate in the NFL draft. I believe he can. Like I said, I have him as a number 3 receiver in college football right now. And, I can't wait to see the comeback season for Emeka Egbuka in 2024.